Hey, welcome back to the show. It is now Friday, and we're going to go through a few things that I think that you might be interested in. First of all, let me introduce myself since this whole project is fairly new. My name is Thom Carnell. I was a buyer for Tower Records, Record Factory, and The Warehouse for nearly 2 decades. I published and wrote most of Carpe Noctem, which was a dark art publication in the 90s. And I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for nearly 20 years. Now, I'm an author. You can go to my Amazon page and take a look at all my books. And be sure to check the description for this video right down there for links to all the music and as much as the stuff that I can include so that you can listen and see some of this stuff for free. Remember, this video, as you can probably tell already, is made with no cuts, no edits, no AI, just me, a stream of thought, and a few notes I've made. If you have a product or something you want me to watch, listen to, or read, go ahead and leave a comment down below or email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. I'm going to start with something that someone asked me about, and that's not story time, but giving a little writer advice to some people out there that I know probably do their own writing, either it's fiction or nonfiction or whatever. I've been doing this a long time, and over the years, I've made every mistake that you could make. So periodically, I'm going to litter these videos with some of that advice. My first advice to new writers is always, yes, plan for the big picture, but also you need to look at the little things. My motto is just move the peg forward one space every day, and that's how you get ahead. Big dumps of things are important, but consistency is more important than anything else. It's something I'm learning with this YouTube channel. Do a little bit, and if you are having trouble with something, move on to something else. Know that I always refer back to a piece of advice Clive Barker gave me, and that was, sometimes you get to a point where that story or that book or that piece of work that you're working on, that's the best it's going to be for you right now. You can always come back up until the time you pull the trigger on publishing it, but there are ways. There isn't a rush for this stuff. That's part of it, is of writing, is not having to punch a 9 to 5 and be too accountable to deadlines set by yourself. I mean, naturally, you're going to honor the deadlines that you accept from other people, but just do a little bit. Do 100 words here, 100 words there. You know, I usually shoot for about 2,000 a day, which I'm going to get to in subsequent pieces of advice. But the main thing is something. It's easy to fall into a malaise and to fall into a depression and to end up blue skying, which is what I call sitting and staring out the window and thinking, oh, well, what should I do? Do something. Write. And if you can't write, if you're completely blocked, read. Stephen King says that, if you're a writer, you have to be a reader. And I agree with that. That's why I read so much. Reading exposes you to other ways of thinking, other possibilities. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I can't tell you how many times that has come up in my work. So that's that. We're going to do these periodically. And if you have any comments, of course, leave them below. Or again, email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. Let's start with my dog's bailing. Let's start with movies. I have a few movie recommendations, and some of them have multiple layers. So we'll get started with this. 1968, a film called Targets. It's Peter Bogdanovich's first film. It stars Tim O'Kelly and the great Boris Karloff. It's about an aging star, a horror star who contemplates retirement amid the modern culture of random violence while a disturbed gun collector goes on a shooting spree around LA. This is a low budget film. It's a raw film. There are scenes that are decidedly stage bound, where you can see this is someone's garage and they threw up some walls and decorated it sparsely, but it shows a breadth of understanding that would herald Bogdanovich's other films. I do recommend it. The last time I looked, it was on Tubi, and we enjoyed it. Both my wife and I, we enjoyed it. It gets a little ham-fisted at the end, but a little preachy, but well worth your time. Well worth your time. Targets, 1968. Following that, speaking of Tubi, they have a documentary that I want to recommend from 2012. I'm going to read it here. It says, EUROCRIME, the Italian cop and gangster films that ruled the 70s. It's a documentary concerning what they called polizioteschi films. Think big blown out, like Starsky and Hutch episodes meets The French Connection. Films like Dirty Harry and The Godfather were heavy influences, but it really addressed Italian political issues. The Sicilian Mafia, Red Terrorism, all that kind of stuff. Directed by Mike Malloy. It stars Franco Nero, a bunch of faces that you would recognize. Franco Nero, John Saxon, Henry Silva. It's very much like another documentary called All the Colors of Giallo, which is, I think, also on Tubi, and I highly recommend that, especially if you have an interest in Giallo, which is the Black Glove Killer movies, the Italian movies. And we'll probably get to tracing that lineage at some point during these conversations. It's great. It's a good way to sort of see what the genre is about. I love polizioteschi. I think they're great and a lot of fun. A little misogynist, but it's the 70s, and if you can set that aside, very much like buddies, very much again like Starsky and Hutch, with titles that are almost as lurid as Giallo's. The one that comes instantly to mind is "Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man" is a great film. But yeah, you can see it. It's fairly short. I think it's about 90 minutes, 100 minutes or so. But well worth checking out again, especially if you want to know a little more about 70s Italian gangster films. Following that, let's see, from 2009, there was a film by Faye Jackson is the director. It's called Strigoi. Stars Catalin Parisia and Rudy Rosenfeld. Has to do with villagers kill a guy, and they think it has to do with meting out justice, but then this guy comes back and with a taste for blood. It's a really interesting / Eastern European take on the vampire film. Well made, well executed, very, very fun, and because they're shooting in places like Romania, a lot of the extras, they have what they used to call in the 40s faces, where like you look at someone and you instantly know what they're about. Maria Ospinskaya in the Wolfman movies, the woman that plays the gypsy, is a perfect example of that. She's not in this, but those kind of people who, as soon as they walk on, you kind of get their whole vibe and you get their whole history just from the lines carved in their face. Following that, 1973. I'm going to butcher this name, so bear with me. I corpo presentano traccia di violenza carnale, a.k.a. the bodies show traces of carnal violence, a.k.a. Torso. Directed by Sergio Martino, who did an array of great films. The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, Your Vice is a Locked Room, and Only I Have the Key. There are those Giallo titles again. Slave of the Mountain God, or Mountain of the Cannibal God, or something like that. Ursula Andress and Stacy Keach are in it. This stars Susie Kendall and Tina Almond. I saw this as a B feature to Texas Chainsaw Massacre at a drive-in in the rain back when I was a kid. I won't say what we were doing, but it was wild. Very cool. It's kind of your standard Giallo setup, But that last act is a cracker. It has to do with the killer in the house. The woman's trying to evade him, and it is high tension. It is very well done, very well executed. It's very kind of 70s. They delve into things like two of the roommates are lesbians, and they kind of play that up a little bit. But all of it is in service of that last act. Highly recommended. Martino, if you want a dive to go into, look into his films. They're great. They're great. He's a great director. And then following that, let's see. So, how do I want to put this? Back in the 20s, there was a series of books, the Philo Vance tales. And Vance was a character who was suave, he was sophisticated, he was educated. He wasn't a cop, but he was always brought in on these cases. They starred William Powell, and they were written by a guy named S.S. Dine. The titles are as follows. In 1929, there was a film called The Canary Murder Case, directed by Malcolm St. Clair and Frank Tuttle. Later that year, they did The GREENE Murder Case, directed by Frank Tuttle. 1930, they did a film called The BENSON Murder Case, again directed by Frank Tuttle. And then finally, The KENNEL Murder Case, which is directed by a guy named Michael Curtiz, whose filmography is a banger, man. You go through that list and it is amazing. Casablanca, Captain Blood, Mildred Pierce. He did White Christmas, and I love that. I love White Christmas. We'll get to White Christmas at some point, I'm sure. Great stuff. Highly recommended. It's kind of serves as a model for what William Powell would do later in the Thin Man films. Very erudite, very educated, very moneyed guy, waltzes into crime scenes and sees all the things that the gumshoes never noticed. Great stuff. Again, all of those are on Tubi, and you can see those for free, which I highly recommend. They're a little slow, a little dated because of the time that they were made. This is the late 20s, early 30s, but spot on. Let's see, moving on to books. I have finished Frank O'Rourke's Battle Royale. Enjoyable, a little trite, a little thin, if you get me. It reads kind of like an assignment. Like, hey, Frank, we need a book right quick. And you go, oh, okay. And a lot of this stuff was used later or previously in his other books. But this is a nice thing. It's small. You can carry it around. The pages are suitably weathered. Fun. The hero is not a lantern-jawed hero. He's more of a guy who uses his brains than his brawn. Great stuff. I also read Arthur Conan Doyle's The Case of Lady SANNOX. Meh. You can kind of see the ending and the twist ending coming up Main Street. It doesn't really resonate as much as Doyle's other stuff, all the Sherlock Holmes stuff. But it was a fun read, and I had it on my Kindle anyway, so it was a part of a big collection of his that I grabbed for like $1.99 or something crazy. But, it was enjoyable. I was between books. I didn't want to dive into anything too meaty because I had a plan to get to this next book, and it is meaty, as you can see. Robert McCannon's Boy's Life. This reads like a Stephen King novel in that it's very nostalgia for a certain time growing up as a child. It reminded me, so far, I'm about yay through it. It reminds me a lot of Frank LaLoggia's film, The Lady in White. Very nostalgic, very sort of small town living. You're slowly getting to learn characters. You're slowly getting to get the feel of the town. And then into this, some very wild and supernatural stuff. Right now, I'm at a point where I don't know where he's going with it. Is it a killer movie, killer in town movie? Is it a lake monster movie? Is it something other than that I'm not really privy to yet? It is highly enjoyable, and I came to it because 80% of the people that I talked to have said, "Oh, have you ever read A Boy's Life?" So another thing for the list. The other thing I've been reading, and I'm very kind of stoked about this, is I've been proofreading the Kindle book for my next short story collection called Open Late. Open Late is a short story collection. It's kind of like a portmanteau film, like Tales from the Crypt, or several stories where there's like a framework that it works around. This is a diner in the middle of the desert during a raging rainstorm, and the staff, a cook and a waitress, are kind of bored, and so they begin telling each other stories. And as people come in and out through the night, everyone has a story to tell that sort of reflects their worldview. And I'm very proud of this book. It's sort of an ode to story. One of the chapters has to do with Robert McKee, who wrote the book Story, which if you're a writer, I highly recommend. If you're a storyteller, I highly recommend. I'm sure I'll recommend it under the book section at some point. But we'll see. We're waiting on the designer to do the print book, and my goal is to have that out to y'all in April. Let's get to records. Have a few of them here, and we're going to go through them as follows. First up, 1995. The band is called Oval. The album is called 94 Discount. It's the fourth album by this German electronic group, known for using X-Acto blades, paint, and other things to damage CDs, and then they stitch them together into making new songs, a new difference. Reminded me of people like Jan Jelinek and Seafeel and the ambient group Gas. Very cool, very enjoyable, a little challenging at times, but again, very, very, very fun, very entertaining. Following that, 2025, the band is called Rumpistol. The record is called Nebula. Danish producer Jens Berens Christensen. It's like neoclassical electronic music with ambient dub, IDM, techno, dubstep overtones. Reminded me a lot of like Hidden Orchestra and Pascal Schumacher. It was a surprise because I was expecting one thing and then got another, much to my delight. I love when that happens. It is well worth checking out. I had never heard of these guys previously. It came up in my feed somehow. I go through a lot of stuff, a lot of videos, a lot of periodicals, a lot of websites, and I'm always looking for recommendations. I keep a pad of paper on me at all times. And when someone mentions something, I write it down and look at it later. 9 times out of 10, I listen to a couple of minutes of it and go, yeah, that's not for me. But there are those other times when something really strikes me, which brings us to the group, the 6-part 7. I'm going to recommend 2 records of theirs. One is called Casually Smashed to Pieces from 2007, and another one is called Everywhere and Right Here from 2004. The band is the brothers Alan and Jay Karpinski. It's kind of post-rock from Ohio. They use the music on NPR's All Things Considered periodically. Reminded me of Brian Eno, John Fahey, Signal Hill. Another enjoyable thing that I didn't know I needed in my life, but then someone recommended it, and I listened to it, and that brought me, I went from one record right to the next, and now they're one of those people that when I see them come up under new releases on my Spotify, I'll add it immediately. Much like there's a group called Los Angeles League of Musicians, or LALOM. They're an American instrumental group with a Hispanic flair. They call themselves Music Tropical. It reminded me a lot of Balthus, of Tommy Guerrero, and Hermanos Gutierrez, if you're familiar with any of those. Very much rock, jazz, mostly jazz though, rock, jazz, but there's the orchestration's very south of the border, very ethnic in a good way. Not that there's a bad way, but you know what I mean. Quite enjoyable, much more technical than I thought it was going to be, but holy mackerel, well worth checking out. Let's see, up next, 1974, the band is called Murple. The record was called Io Sono Murple, Italian progressive rock from Rome. I found this as a result of Scott over at the Prog Corner, and they're great. Reminded me of things like, and I'm going to butcher these names too, Il Rovescio della Medaglia, Città Frontale, and La Maschera di Sera. It's Italian prog, but hot damn, very enjoyable, very, very, very fun. Reminded me of those bands, but also, you know, more established bands like Banco di Mituro Soccorso, PFM. We're in that kind of a neighborhood. Following that, we're getting down to the last few here. Lafayette Afro Rock Band. The album is called Malik. It's from 1975. They're an American funk band from Roosevelt, Long Island, but then they relocated to France. Reminded me very much of things like Cameo, Funkadelic, Kool and the Gang. Very, very cool. They've got a ton of records, and they're all really, really great. I recommend these guys a lot. I'm a big funk fan, but again, this came across from me from XL Junkie NL here on YouTube. Great stuff. Great stuff. If you like funk, you're gonna love Lafayette Afro Rock Band. Let's see. Next up, 1992, a band called Inslaughter Natives. I don't want to get too much of a reflection on that. Called Enter Now the World. This is a guy named Johnny Havakayan from Sweden. He's part of that whole Roger Carmonic cold meat industry group, industrial dark ambient. Reminded me of bands like Brighter Death Now, Raison d'Etre, Puissance, Deutsche Nepal, Kofnia. I always used to tell people about this record. This is like someone lowered a microphone into hell. Bombastic drums, huge echoey passages, while still very much industrial, very much enjoyable. It's the kind of record I like to say that will have you checking the corners of the room late at night. Great stuff. Highly recommended, as are all of their records. But yeah, Inslaughter Natives, Enter Now the World. Following that, 1997, the band is called Zoar. The record is called Cassandra. They're an instrumental band out of New York City, led by a guy named Michael Montez. Think goth, ambient, classical, experimental. It's very much like a soundtrack. Reminded me of things like In Blind Embrace, Penitent, and Oberon. Back in the Carpenoctum days, we interviewed these guys, and they were great. I heard this record by chance back then when it was first released, and immediately fell in love. And I highly suggest you go to the description of this video, and you will find a link, and you can listen to it for yourself. Again, it's very much like a soundtrack to a kind of a film that doesn't exist. Next up, 1989, not that one, this one. Pauline Oliveros, Stuart Dempster, Penny Otis, doing a record called Deep Listening. This is, in a word, great. Pauline Oliveros has passed, but she was a accordionist and composer. Stuart Dempster plays trombone, didgeridoo, and is an improviser. And Penny Otis is a vocalist. This reminded me of things like Terry Riley, John Hassel, and Elaine Radicu. This is kind of like Dempster's Cistern album. It's essentially this group of people were lowered into this giant cave. Lots of echo, lots of slap back and this kind of thing. And then improvised long sections of music that are very meditative, very melancholic in a way. This is one of my favorite albums of all time, especially for late at night. Highly recommended. There's a whole string of deep listening CDs, and they're all recommended. And then last but not least, Les Moore's Heresy. This, Les Moore is a guy, Brian Les Moore, aka Brian Williams. He worked with Tool, the Melvins, Paul Haslinger, Chris and Cozy, Biosphere. This is another one of those records, much like In Slaughter Natives, that will have you checking the corners of the room. Much like a lot of Les Moore's work, it's very ambient, it's very dark, and it's very, it's a beautiful stuff if you have an appreciation for those kinds of things. Les Moore is a guy who you can pretty much grab at random, and you're going to get something that is at the very least interesting. So that's going to do it this week for Friday. I'll be back on Monday with a whole ration of stuff I'm starting to pull together already. And hopefully you're enjoying the show. Please give me some feedback. Like and subscribe and comment. Let me know what I'm doing right. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. I want to suggest things to you that are going to improve your life and improve your listening and your viewing and your reading experience. Go to my website. Go to www.thomcarnell.com/KMRE. You will find 200 hours of a radio show I did a few years ago, full of audio clips of movies and speeches and interviews and lots of music, very fun stuff. It played Friday night at midnight, so I tried to keep that vibe in mind. While you're there, please check out the web pages for my other things going on. There's books there, there's video files, I think there might be writing samples, that kind of thing. And while you are at it, this is my new book, Monolith Records. It has to do with a guy gets hired at a place called Monolith Records in about 1985. Very much modeled on my years working at Tower. It's how I met my wife. So unlike my other stuff, which is very horror related, this is kind of a romantic comedy, nostalgic kind of thing. And I think you might enjoy it. So go out, have a good weekend. Remember, again, like, comment, and subscribe. And please, if you can, share this show with as many people as you know. I really want to get my numbers up so then that I can expose more people to more stuff. So that's going to do it. Have a good day and have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.